I'm just going to stop my video as well. Okay, right. So let's start off on a practice page. So how this works exactly is, say, for instance, I have 100 students in a class and I want to ask them a question of, a test of 50 questions. Now, one of the problems we experience is when we have our students write online, they just share the questions amongst each other and copy from each other. So what we want to do is we want to mix it up a little bit so that each student gets a set of questions that are different from each other. So each set will be unique. Some of the questions within the test will be the same. So they will have some questions the same, but the questions will be differently numbered, and also not the entire set of 50 questions will be the same. Now, the amount of replicates you get in the test depends on how many questions you set up. The more questions you set up compared to your sample, the less replicates you will have within each test of the student. So more questions is definitely better, but I do know that, you guys don't have all the time in the world to set up a million questions. But we say, try and get at least double the amount of questions that you have students, meaning that if you have 100 questions, sorry, not the amount of students, the amount that you're asking. So if you have a 50-point question test, then you should have at least 100 so they get, at least 50-50 different uniquely set up. Okay. Now, after that jamble, I'm not sure that made sense. Let's get going. So the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to create the test just yet in our test content area. What we're going to do, we're first going to create the pool with the large amount of questions. And for that, we need to go to the course management section here, expand course tools, and scroll down to test, surveys, and pools. Now we're going to go to pools because we need to create a pool for our questions. And here we will get a list of our current pools. Some of these you might have inherited when they copied over your subject, or if this is the first time, you won't have anything here. Now we can import a pool from another subject, and the process is exactly the same as exporting and importing a test. So it works exactly the same. Today we're going to build a pool. So I'm going to go build pool. And like a test, you give it a name, you can have a description and instructions. I'm just going to call this test 1, term 1. And maybe you can put in a description here to remind you what these questions are or instructions. Submit. And now it looks exactly the same as creating a test. So we build questions, different types of questions. You could also go and find questions from your other tests. Just move this out of the way. There we go. So you can go and get questions from other tests or other pools. So if you had previous tests and you want to sample some of those questions, you can just go and check them, submit, and you can build your entire pool like this from old questions, from old tests or previous pools. And keep going like that. Or you can build completely new questions as you would do creating a new test from scratch. Okay, and as you can see, there are their default points. You can just change those the same way you would in a test canvas. And now we've got a pool of questions. Okay, I'm going to click OK, because I've already created a pool earlier today, example here with 80 questions. So we're going to use that today in our example, but that is how we build a pool. You can see that my new pool is here at the bottom. I can just go and edit it, add some more questions, or I can delete it, or I can export it if I want to import it to another subject, etc. Okay, so that's how we create pools. Now that we're done and we have created our pool for our question sets, I'm going to close that. And this time we're going to go up back to our tests content area. Now, if you don't have a test content area yet, or you build your tests in other content areas, that's fine, but you can just build a new one by going up to your add menu item button, which is a plus and a circle, and select content area. I can't call it the same, so I'm just going to call it test 2, submit, and then move it to wherever you want. Okay, but I already have a tests content area, so I'm quickly going to delete that, and I'm going to go to that now. Now, we know that we create a test by going up to assessments test. We're going to go the same route. We're going to create a new test. We're going to give it a name. And maybe they are writing that test today. And again, we put in a description and instructions the same we would do normally for creating tests. Okay, so all the steps for creating a pool like this is the same up until when we start creating the questions. Okay, so description, instructions, same as you always would have. Submit. Now, normally when we get to the question, the canvas, we start creating our questions. And here are the different types of questions. But we've already created our questions. It's in our pool, and our pool is hidden here in our course management section. We are now just going to set it up so it asks random samples from those question sets. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say reuse question and create question set. Now you can create a random block. They work almost exactly the same way. I'm not entirely sure why they have them both here, but I prefer question set. It's much easier and quicker. You can go and experiment with blocks if you want, but they really do work exactly the same way and you get the same results. So now that I've got my pools open here, I'm going to go to that example pool that I've created earlier. And here I can see there are 4 pages of questions. I've got 80 questions. But now I want to ask a set of all the multiple choice questions. And I want to ask a set of all the multiple answers questions. And I've got a couple of essay questions hidden in there as well. So I don't want all of these questions in the set because I want to keep them separate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter it here by question types. And I'm first going to say, let me see all the questions that are essay type questions. And there I go. There are 5 of them. And I'm only going to ask 2 of them for my students. Okay, so I'm going to check all of them, or maybe if you didn't want all of them, you only wanted a couple, you just select them individually. But today I want all of them. So I'm going to select all of them and go submit. Now I've got total number of questions and how many questions there are. And now how many questions are going to be displayed to each student. Now I said earlier, I'm going to do 2, which means they are going to each get 2 of the 5 essay questions. So the chances are that they are going to get exactly the same 2 as their buddy is very low. So this already is going to help you out a lot. Okay, so I've got my first question set here, and you can see that I've got 2 questions and 20, even though I've got 5 up there, it's only going to tally up what is going to be asked to the student. And that is my first set done. So I'm going to go back, create question set. It's going to open up again. I'm going to go through the same process. So I'm going to go to my pool, which is example pool. Here are all of my questions. This time I'm going to ask for my multiple answer questions because I've got a couple of them in there and they all count. Oh, not a couple, literally a couple, just 2. And they count 2 instead of the 1 that the multiple choice questions are. So I'm going to check both of them. I'm going to submit. And now you can see that they are 10 by default. So I'm just going to make them 2 each. And in this case, I want 1 to display. So there are 2 multiple answer type questions. They are the same difficulty level. So each student is only going to receive 1 of them. Now let's do all of the rest, which are multiple choice. And now I want you to concentrate here because this is something that always happens to me, and I'm sure it's going to happen to you as well. I often check, so I'm going to go question types. This time I'm going to say multiple choice. And you can see that there are 73 multiple choice questions. And what I always do is now I go and I select all of them and I submit. But what I forget is that each page only shows 25. So if I submit now, you'll see that instead of the 73, I only have 25. So remember that. So I'm going to delete this one now because I don't want it. I want all 73 in the set. Okay, I'm going to go back, create question set. Again, select my pool. Again, select multiple choice. But this time I'm going to go down, select show all. so that I have all 73 questions on this page. And now I'm going to select all items. Again, you could have selected them individually if you didn't want all of them, but we want all of them today. And that would be the case mostly with you because you create the pool especially for this. So we're going to select all of them. And now we can see all 73 are selected, not just the first 25. Submit. And now here I have all 73. And they are going to count 1 point. And I want this test to be out of 50, so 727. So I want to ask 27 of these. That will, of course, differ from what you want. Oops, did I do my math wrong? Clearly, I should not be doing math on Fridays. There we go. Now I've got a total points of 50 and 31 questions that will be asked from my 80. So each student will only get 31 questions out of that sample of 80, which means that, you know, you have quite a good selection. And it means that your students will have a really tough time trying to copy from each other, because not only, as I said, will they each get a unique set of questions, they will be numbered completely differently. So if a student has, for instance, 2 hours to write their test, it will be impossible for them to write their own test and try and help each other out in the 2-hour limit, because they need to work through the test and they can't figure out which questions their friend got and which they got and which answers they have, etc., etc. This won't mitigate, you know, a student just sitting there with a textbook, of course. That is why we always recommend that the type of question that you ask should be a higher difficulty level, a question that has an application element to it, so that students need to understand the content to be able to answer the question instead of just being able to Google or something like that. But at least this way you will stop students from copying from each other while writing the test. Now let's have a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to hit OK. And now we go on as we would normally with any test, that we go and select our options. I'm going to make it available. I'm going to give this an unlimited attempts now, because I want to show you what happens if a student has a second attempt or third attempt. I'm not going to select any of these items now, but you can go and see the video on test options if you're interested in how any of these works and what they all do. We also have regular trainings on that, but most of these are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to check any of them. And let's go. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on all at once because I want to show you the sequence of. Okay, great. My test is all set up. Now I'm going to go in as the student. Okay, now note the questions that I get. So I'm going to start. So my first question that I get is those 2 essay questions. So remember, I got 2 essay questions out of 5. Then I'm going to get the 3 or the 1 multiple answers. And then I'm going to get all the rest of the multiple choice questions. Now let's have a look at the first 2. The first question is, a network is one that uses, okay, so we can see that question. So I'm just going to put in something here, something else. Okay, and the multiple answer question that I got was, a network administrator enters the command. Okay, and we've got, so I'm going to just choose 2 things here, choose a couple more, and so on. All right, I'm going to submit. It's going to say I haven't answered all the questions, which is fine. We know that. Okay, now look what happens when I go into the test again, because remember, I gave myself multiple tries. You'll see that this time I'll get a whole new set of questions. And there you can see it. I've got a different essay question, and so on. Okay, I've got the same question for number 3, the multiple answers, but that's just because there were only 2. So, you know, in a random algorithm, it's very likely that you would get. So that's why I say you should really get, try and get, you know, more questions. The more questions you have, the better this will work. But anyway, you can see that the same student will also get different tests if you have multiple attempts. So even that won't work for a student if they think, okay, lecturer gave me 2 attempts, so I'm going to say my internet failed on the first attempt, but what I'm really doing is I'm just going through the test quickly and getting all the answers later and then going and writing on the second attempt. And then that won't work for them because the second attempt will be different. Okay, so that is how we work with question sets. So would you like me to show the steps again? Did everyone get that, or questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat box.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
It's Francis for Mechanical.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to find out if the student has answered some of them and submitted. In case where you showed question by question. When he logs out and logs in again, he will start from where he ended, or it will be, you'll have to start afresh.
That is dependent on your options, how you set them up. So here on your test options, that specific thing that you're talking about is dependent on the forced completion. So this little box here. Now, if you check this box, that means that the student, when they go out, they will not be allowed back in to continue where they left off. If you do not have this checked and the student goes out and comes back in, then they will continue the first attempt where they left off. Otherwise, they will have to go into the, so this one means it automatically submits when they go out of the test, or even just change tabs in the tab browser, in the browser itself. The moment they leave this window, the test window, it submits that attempt and they won't be allowed to continue back where they left off. If this is unchecked, they can leave the browser or anything, or if they have an internet connection issue, like it can be a split second of losing internet connectivity, and then they can go back and go from where they start again from where they left off. Does that answer your question?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, all right, I've got a couple in the chats here. Polani is asking, at the beginning, my screen was obscure when you started. I was just filling in the register. Okay, sorry, let me just quickly go back to the beginning of this process. So what we need to do here is we don't start off creating a test in the content area. We first need to create a pool, and this we find under course management section, course tools, test surveys and pools. Then we go to pools. And here we build the pool, and the pool is built in the same way as you would build your test canvas. So it works exactly the same way. You can just go and create your questions. And then once your pool has been built and you've got it here under your pools, then you go to tests and start building your question sets. Does that answer your question, Polani? Is that the bit that you missed?
Yes, Leandro, thank you.
Okay, no probs. Ruth is asking, please can you show me how to do the initial setup for the test? Ruth, is that what I just showed? Just check here. Yeah, okay, good. So I answered 2 questions in one. Great. Vanda is asking, if you teach different subject courses, do you build a question set for each within the course? So you build a set for RCM, but also a new set for DCT. Right, so each pool is connected to their subject. So this pool will only stay within this subject code. But like I said, you can export and import pools into different. So what you can do is you can build one big pool and just export it and import it into your other subjects if you have questions that duplicate across subjects. But no, each pool is just, it stays on its own course where you built it.
Hi, ma'am. Is it possible to register a lecture as a student as well? I see this works better for one to check if the test was correctly set.
Okay, you can. Yes, we can. You can ask to get like a test dummy. I know some lecturers prefer that, but you know, if, okay, let me just make sure. This is now where I'm the instructor. You can see that I've got all the course management tools. You can do the test as a student by going into the student preview mode.
Yeah, but remember, you don't want to open the access before the date. So if you go into the student view, it won't show anything until you make the test available.
Yeah, but it will be the same way if you're a student. If you have a student, like say, for instance, I have the student account. If the test wasn't available and I couldn't use the student preview, I wouldn't have been able to do it as a student either, because again, the test isn't available for students. So mostly what we do is we test it this way. What I do then is, wonder what, I mean, in that case, we can always just set up. Yeah, that's quite difficult, because now you don't want to open it even for the briefest period, because students are on it so quickly. What we can do is you can, if you are worried about a test, we can put it on one of my test subjects and you can go through it there. Just let me know and we can do that. And then I'll enroll you as a student on that one. And you can see what the students are going to see. That might be the best way, just to put it on a subject like this one that doesn't have anything connected to it.
Yeah, I am asking that because I've set up the test, and after the student has written the test, it marks them wrong even if they provide the correct answer.
What kind of questions are these? Multiple blanks?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was mix of type of questions.
Fill in the multiple blanks. Oh, Peter is making a very valid point here. You can use a password, then you can open the test because only you know the password, and then check it as a student. Thanks, Peter. That's a brilliant idea. Yeah. Liesl is also saying you can use adaptive release. Yes, you can if you have a preview user, but you can't use adaptive release as your instructor profile. But yes, we can create the preview user for you. That's not hard. And then we can do that as well. But the password is probably going to be the quickest way to do it. All right. So regarding multiple blanks, a lot of people I see set up multiple blank questions. So I'm just going to go to this one here. Oops, no, somebody already started writing this, obviously. So I'm going to just create a new one. Just want to show you the multiple blank question type. Now, multiple blank question type is very finicky, and it very often just marks things incorrectly that we think will be marked correctly. It's very, very specific. And the moment you start using more than one word or sentence or anything like that, it starts breaking up. So multiple choice works like this. We put in blanks. So we say, always use a rhyme, Mary. And then we put in the variables in our brackets. Okay, something like that. All right. Now, here's the problem with this. Anytime we use any kind of question set that is not just single words. So if I use, for instance, lamb here, anything else that the student is going to type in is going to be incorrect. So what you can do is you can have multiple answers where you try and figure out what students might do. So they might misspell it like that, or they might put in a synonym or something like that. And then you can try and mitigate the incorrect marking. But if it's not exactly the way it is set up here, it's not going to be marked correctly. So a lot of times I see this, I see lecturers change it to contains, and then they put in, for instance, the 3 keywords of a definition. So they ask for a definition, and the keywords in the definition are, for instance, interest, don't even know how to spell that. Whatever the case may be. And then they hope that if the student types a sentence where the sentence is, for instance, in the case when interest is, raised in the dividend or ratio, if those 3 keywords are in the definition, it won't mark it correctly. It doesn't work that way. The AI just isn't sophisticated enough yet. You can try with pattern match to make it a bit more, clever, but it takes a lot of work to get a pattern to match. And honestly, it's not worth it. In this case, I would just say do a short answer. So that is what I think happens most of the time when we have multiple blank answers and it's marked incorrectly. It's just that we try and make them too complex. So maybe go and have a look at your answers again and your questions again and think if there's no way of maybe simplifying it so that it gets marked correctly.
Thank you for that. You are saying even if they have written the test, if I go and change the memo, it will change the marking.
Yeah.
It will remark. Okay. Perfect.
So if you go to a test that's already been written, like that one had 2 attempts now, as we saw, you go to edit the test. And for instance, say I want to change that to 27 or anything like that. Let's change a question. I'm not sure now if you can do it with question sets. Let's see. I'm going to try and edit one, but normally you can. So if I say essay, I'm going to change this one. Edit it. Maybe I used an incorrect term or something and I saw that afterwards. So this should be router instead of root. Submit. And then at the top, it's going to tell me that the test has 2 and they have been updated. So it will update each and every one of the attempts and fix it. So if it was multiple choice and you accidentally selected the wrong answer, and now it's marking all of the students' attempts incorrectly, you can go after the fact, edit the test, mark the correct answer, submit an update attempt, and it will go back to all the attempts, remark them, and allocate that 1 point to the student who has to get it.
That's nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it saves a lot of time when that happens. Okay. Victoria, you're saying I can use something from yours, but I think we answered that question, so we're okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay, here's one. If 1 or 2 students miss the due date for submission due to serious child, is it possible to open just for them? Yes, that is what we call the exceptions. So if you have a test that is open for a certain window and you have 2 students that have a doctor's certificate or emergencies or whatever the case may be, we create an exception for those students. So you go to these tests. Now say this test has already been written and it's already closed for my other students. I'm going to go to edit the test options, scroll all the way down to the exceptions, which is here, test availability exceptions. I'm going to add the user, or if there are whole groups of students that need different rules, I'm going to go and select the 2 students that had an issue and submit them. And now I can change the rules for them. And this can be anything. For instance, they can get a different amount of attempts. So if you only gave 1 attempt and one of your students had an issue, you can change it to now 2 attempts, which means this student will have an extra attempt that the other users did not have. You can add time for them. So if this student needs 30 minutes more, you could add extra time, or you can uncheck their forced completion if they, for instance, have a very bad internet connection, which might be helpful. Or as in your case, you just check the dates and give them a new set of dates, a new window, which means that this student will now be able to write this test in these dates, not the dates where the other students, the initial dates. So they can open the test in the new set. And you can have different sets of rules for different people here. So you can, Wynand can get 1 set of rules, or Renele, maybe she only can write, sorry for my colleagues for abusing you, maybe she can only write the next week after that, and you give her another set of rules. Okay. And maybe she doesn't need more time, or whatever the case may be. So you can create exceptions for your users depending on your needs, with these 4 rules: the amount of attempts, timer, the availability, and the options for forced completion. And then you just submit. Now these students will be able to open the test in these new windows.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, if you're interested, just in case you forget, I actually have on the YouTube channel under the test playlist, there is a video just on test availability exceptions where I explain it a bit more in full. So if you ever want to do that again and you forget how to do that. Also, the test option video shows all of the options in depth if you're interested in what forced completion does or anything like that. Ellen, you raised a hand. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, is it possible that one of the sessions you can address the calculations questions where from engineering side, because the multiple choice fill in and things like that we can use, but most of our questions are based on calculations. So the
Right.
first two from the test, if you
Yep.
go to the test, the first two.
Question types, edit, it's a calculation and calculated formula.
Yes, can you please show us in one of the where we can specifically work on those, and then perhaps to see how we build them so that we can be able to start doing the test bank and use what you are giving us now. I will appreciate that, because if we can have this from our side, it could be much better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you exactly what I know of these two question types, but just as a disclaimer, I am horrible at math. So I'm going to show you how the questions work. I can't actually help you so much with the application, but I'm sure you will be able to do that. So the first two questions in the question sets are the calculated formula and calculated numeric questions, and they are for the math or the engineering guys. Accounting also uses them. And we're going to start with formula. And in this case, we have the answer as a formula. Okay, so this is when you have an answer that is in formula and not just like the answer is 5x or something like that. It's a formula. And again, with these two question types, as with fill in the multiple blanks, they are very, very specific. So if your student doesn't input exactly the way you have the answer formula, they will not be answered correctly. So maybe this is a question where they have to and they have to show the calculation. So they can't just put in 8 when they solve X. They have to actually give you their method of doing it. And now you will put in your really, I don't know anything about maths. I'm just going to put in something here. Oh, wait, I just said X.
Can I give you an example?
Yeah,
of,
please help me out, because I'm literally
yes,
grasping at straws here.
Yes, perhaps we can say S equals to F divided by A.
S equals F divided by 8.
Yeah, by A.
Oh, by A,
A.
sorry.
Yes.
Let me just find out where's the calculated. Okay, we need this one. Let me just put it in nicely, not in the. Okay, so S equals. Where is equals?
F.
Equals F divided by A, right?
Yes.
Okay, it didn't really do it much cooler than mine, so it looks about the same. Okay, so this is the, now what would this formula look like that the student has to show?
It's going to be a fraction S, and then I think we can use the first one where
Yes.
there's a, yes, is.
S.
No, F, that one on top, it will be F.
And then A.
And then equals to S. Or S equals to that.
Oops, no. Okay, right, let's go back. Okay. All right, so if they do this, then they will, I assume, keep going and break it down into more things.
Yes.
Until they have a final answer. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be the formula then. And then we have a range in the answer.
We can put the numbers.
Yeah.
We can put the numbers there. The second step, yes, perhaps we can say 10 divided by 2.
And of course, this will be 5. My math isn't that bad. And then we can give them a range. Now, if you keep it on 0, that means they have to have it exactly the same, the answer. So that one. But if we have a range, it can be plus or minus a little bit of a variant. I'm going to leave it on 0, 0 now. You guys will know best how to. Partial credit means that they can get, oops. Now, units, points, percentage, I've never understood. I assume it means that each unit has its own point system. So if each unit is 33.3, it means that they get a third of the mark for this. That's how I always understood it, but let's try it. There should be 3 units then. Partial credit. I don't know. Let's try this and see if it's going to work. Calculate answers to how many decimals, number of answer sets. Correct.
3. Let's say to 3.
Okay. And then number of answer sets. It says there's only 1 because there were no variables found. Okay, that's fine. And then calculate. See, that's why I hate this. See, it says we have a problem here. Just going to try and think. I think it's probably to do with this. Still an error. Okay. It's not really going to help me trying to figure this out now. Let me go and speak to a math person and I'll figure this out. Try and figure out. I have tried before. The numeric one is much easier because the answer is just a single number. So if you solve for X and the answer is 8, you know, for instance, that's how that one works. But the formula one has always kind of stumped me. So let me go and figure this out finally and make a video. So I'm going to speak to someone who is both an instructional designer like myself and knows Blackboard, but is also a math person. So I'm going to try and find that perfect combination of instructional design and get them to help me figure this out. Is that okay? And I'll create a video for you next week.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes, I think that will help quite a lot.
All right. I'll do that.
Thank
I'll make
you.
that my plan of action for the weekend to try and find this magical person.
Okay, so you will set up the eTutor talks for that session for that questions.
I will set up. First, I'm going to just create a short video, like I create videos. So you get it immediately, and then we can set up a training session, yes, later, where we cover them as well.
Yes, thank you so much. That will help.
All right, maybe I can get someone to come and guest train us on the calculated formula.
Yes, that will really help. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other questions? Please don't ask me any more math stuff. Okay, so let's cut it off here today. I'm very happy you all came. Let's go and have weekend. If you have any questions regarding the question sets, let me know. As always, today, a little bit later, I'm going to put this video recording up on the channel under playlists, eThuto Talks, and this is where we put all the talk sessions, and I label them by date. So the one that I put up today will be at the very, very bottom, so you can see them here. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this session now here. I've just got one more question. Let me just stop the recording.